The House will come to order. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. This is the Paymar motion. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file herewith returned as amended by the Senate, which amendment to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File 263, an act relating to public safety. Paymar moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File 263 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
I recognize the author, Representative Paymar, who will explain the Senate amendments.
Madam Speaker, this is House File 263. This is the Paymar-Gruenhagen Crimes of Violence bill. And this bill adds the felony fifth-degree assault, felony domestic assault, and domestic assault by strangulation to those individuals who would be prohibited from possessing a firearm. And the Senate's language was identical, so I would ask for your approval.
Is there any discussion on the motion to concur with the Senate amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File 263 as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Discussion to the bill. Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 129 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate and its title agreed to.
Message from the Senate. This is the Norton motion. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendment to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File 2684, an act relating to transportation. Norton moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File 2684 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
I recognize the author, Representative Norton, who will explain the Senate amendments.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This bill is identical to the House bill that passed off the floor with one exception. And this is the bill regarding teen driving and the new voluntary parental component. The difference is the Senate has dropped the number of behind-the-wheel hours from 60 to 50 for all drivers, and for those participating in the parent component from 50 to 40. Other than that, the bill is identical to the one that passed off the House floor, and so I'm going to recommend concurrence.
Any discussion on the motion to concur? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File 2684 as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Discussion to the bill. Seeing no discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 84 ayes and 45 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate and its title agreed to.
Message from the Senate. This is the Liebling motion. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendment to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File 2950, an act relating to human services. Liebling moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File 2950 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
I recognize the author, Representative Liebling, to explain the Senate amendments.
Good morning, members and Madam Speaker. Thank you. This is the DHS unsession bill that we passed, and the Senate actually was supposed to remove a repealer for us that was mentioned on the floor by Representative Albright, and they goofed up and didn't do that. I've had a conversation with Representative Albright. We're going to, he's okay, he's told me he's okay with concurring with this anyway, but we're going to fix the error in our HHS omnibus policy bill, which is still open, and we're getting an amendment drafted to do that. So there was a provision that Representative Albright didn't want to repeal. I concur with him, and we're going to make sure that that happens, but I would ask for your support on the motion to concur.
On the motion to concur, Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And those sentiments are mine exactly. We're going to take care of this in another bill, and I thank Chair Liebling for her work on that. Thank you very much.
Seeing no further discussion on the motion to concur, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File 2950 as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Discussion to the bill. Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 130 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate and its title agreed to.
Message from the Senate. This is the Bernardy Conference Committee report. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the Senate has concurred in and adopted the Conference Committee report on Senate File 2390, an act relating to elections. The report's addressed to the Honorable Sandra Pappas, President of the Senate, the Honorable Paul Thiessen, Speaker of the House, we the undersigned conferees for Senate File 2390 report that we agreed upon the items of dispute and recommend as follows. The report signed by all three conferees on the part of the House, part of the Senate, and all three conferees on the part of the House. Bernardy moves that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File 2390 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by conference.
I recognize Representative Bernardy to explain the Conference Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like our members to support this Conference Committee report and pass it today. This came off the House floor with a unanimous vote. We also added two provisions from the Senate, as well as 2 Republican amendments, and I want to share those with you. The ones we accepted from the Senate, I think people in this body will be very interested in. The one is very simple, and that's a formatting ballot questions for yes and no, and there's one more that needed to be included. The second one is regarding absentee votes when people vote absentee ballot. Currently, the public is made available the list of who voted absentee ballot after the election. The Senate provision that was accepted unanimously by our committee now makes those public once an absentee ballot has been accepted. The other two provisions are Republican provisions, and one is Representative Sanders, and that is making it codifying it, making it law now that somebody, and I should let you know that 20,000 people have in the past almost sent their absentee voter application in through fax or through scanning it on email, and this allows people to be able to continue to do that. The other provision is Senator Newman's provision, and that provision makes it mandatory that the Secretary of State's office does a security review of online voter registration, and then also making sure that it's encrypted so that it can't be captured by anybody. So those are how it's come back to us, and I encourage members to support it. Thank you.
Any discussion? Representative Sanders.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I just want to echo Representative Bernardy's comments. This bill was a good bill, unanimous bill that went off the House floor, 128 to nothing. I believe that the bill got stronger and better in conference committee and urge members to support it.
Seeing no further discussion on the adoption of the conference committee report, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, Senate File 2390, as amended by conference.
Third reading as amended by conference. Any discussion to the bill? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 130 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by conference and its title agreed to.
Message from the Senate. This is the Johnson C. conference report. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce that the Senate has concurred in and adopted the conference committee report on Senate File 2736, an act relating to public safety. The report's addressed to the Honorable Sandra L. Pappas, President of the Senate, the Honorable Paul Thiessen, Speaker of the House, we the undersigned conferees for 2736, report that we agreed upon the items in dispute and recommend as follows. The report signed by all three conferees on the part of the Senate and all three conferees on the part of the House. Johnson C. moves that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File 2736 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by conference.
I recognize the author, Representative Johnson, to explain the report.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I ask for your support for the Conference Committee report. I'd like to start by thanking Representative Hillstrom and Representative O'Neill for joining me on the committee. I also want to just mention a word of thanks to the Ramsey County Attorney and their staff, who really, throughout this process, provided quality insight about their experience with GPS monitoring of domestic violence offenders. The Conference Committee agreed to create a statewide program through which local judicial districts will form advisory groups of key stakeholders and professionals to work from a set of state standards to develop and implement the use of GPS to protect victims of domestic violence. This allows the current program in Ramsey County to continue. All 6 members of the Conference Committee agreed to the report. There was a significant difference between the Senate and the House approach related to the time frame for the project. The Senate had a one-year pilot and the House a permanent approach. The Senate was insistent on maintaining a pilot. We agreed to a 3-year pilot project with reporting to the legislature after 1 year of implementation of a project. You'll recall that on the floor, the House eliminated language related to underrepresented groups through Representative Scott's amendment. We maintained the House position, however, with mutually agreed language assuring that the advisory group addressed not only financial costs, but also financial accessibility and financial implications. The Minnesota Coalition for Battered Women supported that language. We accepted what we considered positive language from the Senate, providing that a violation of a location restriction by a defendant in a situation involving a victim and a defendant who are both mobile does not automatically violate the conditions of the defendant's release. Senate File 2736 is a positive step forward to protect some victims of domestic violence. I urge your support.
Any discussion on adoption of the report? The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Johnson. I just want to end Representative Hillstrom for our good work on this conference committee, and I do concur with you that this language actually, I believe, is stronger and better coming out of the conference committee, and the Senate did offer a few provisions that were actually an improvement on the bill. And even though we couldn't make it a permanent program and we compromised with them and made this a 3-year pilot program, this is a good step moving forward. And I actually had an opportunity to see this live and in action in Wright County, and it's a fantastic program, and it really does offer great benefit to someone who is a victim of domestic violence. And I look forward to seeing this implemented across the state and seeing how this rolls out. So we'll be getting reports back. I'm really excited to move this forward, and I urge a green vote.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the author would yield.
He will yield. Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the author, are all the interested parties signed off on this, or is there any opposition remaining?
Representative Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. All 6 members of the committee signed off in support of the agreement.
Any further discussion to adoption of the report? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, Senate File 2736 as amended by conference.
Third reading as amended by conference. Discussion. Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 131 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the conference committee, and its title agreed to.
Message from the Senate. This is the Winkler conference committee. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the Senate has concurred in and adopted the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File 2782, an act relating to campaign finance. The report's addressed to the Honorable Sandra L. Pappas, President of the Senate, the Honorable Paul Thiessen, Speaker of the House. We, the undersigned conferees for Senate File 2782, report that we agreed upon the items in dispute and recommend as follows. The report signed by all 3 conferees on the part of the Senate and all 3 conferees on the part of the House. Winkler moves that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File 2782 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by conference.
I recognize Representative Winkler, who will explain the report.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is the local campaign finance bill that we passed some time ago. It increases the limits for local candidates for cities and counties and others, and it requires disclosure of where a better disclosure of where those donations are coming from. It requires that cities and counties with registered voters number greater than 400 provide a link on their website or a presentation or a report on their website if they have a website, and it requires the Campaign Finance Board to link to the local website with the Campaign Finance report. No other state requires this kind of public online disclosure, and I think it is a good bill and a good deal, which also allows us to update those numbers which haven't been changed for 20 years. We did accept the O'Driscoll provision on 400 registered voters, which the Senate immediately saw the wisdom of when Representative O'Driscoll explained it. And members, so I would ask for a yes vote on the adoption of the conference report and a green vote on the bill.
Any discussion to the adoption of the conference committee report? Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would concur, members, with Representative Winkler's assessment of the situation. This bill did get stronger, and it does exempt some of our local cities and counties, cities and townships of 400 or less registered voters, so they would not have to have an additional or onerous burden placed on them when they don't have a website. And those communities that do not have a website will be able to forward those to the county for posting. It does increase transparency, and it does also take into account some fiscal responsibility for those smaller communities. And I urge members on both side to vote green. And once again, the House did prevail in the language that we were looking for over the Senate, so the bill has gotten stronger. Green vote is recommended. Thank you.
Any further discussion to the report? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, Senate File 2782, as amended by conference.
Third reading as amended by conference. Any further discussion to the bill? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 121 ayes and 10 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by conference and its title agreed to.
Message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate files herewith transmitted. Senate Files 1360 and 2438.
First reading of Senate files.
Introduction and first reading of Senate File 1360, an act relating to crime. Cornish moves that Senate File 1360 and House File 1585, now in the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Calendar for the day. Oh, there hearing no objection, so ordered.
Introduction and first reading of Senate File 2438, an act relating to labor and industry. Mahoney moves that Senate File 2438 and House File 2947, now in the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Hearing no objection, so ordered. Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for the day is House File 3368. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 3368 on the calendar for the day, a resolution memorializing the President and Congress concerning the detention and torture of the Somali people in Kenya.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Clark.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'd like to share with you a very dire situation which we have put into resolution form, and we wanted you to know about it. It's been about 5 weeks ago that I first learned of the horrendous situation that was going on in Kenya with many of our Somali refugees. And some of you know there's a number of us here who are honored to represent a lot of the Somali people who are refugees here in Minnesota. We have the largest diaspora of Somali people here, and we're very proud of that. So it's important that we bring this forward. This will be voted on by us. The Senate will vote on it, and then it will go to the governor. And I'm pleased to say it's a bipartisan effort, and you'll be hearing from a number of us today. There was a rally that was held here about 3 weeks ago, and also I was invited by one of the people who was sitting down in front here, Jabril Said, who's the president of the Somali Citizens League, to speak at a meeting along with Representative Ellison, where we talked about what was going on. And so there's some work going on in Congress with this too. Fahil Khalif, who's the other person sitting here in the front with us, is a person who educated me a lot about what's going on, and there's many family members that we have that are being affected by the situation. And we're hoping that our words here today can help bring an end to what's going on in Kenya. So I will start. This is a resolution memorializing the President and Congress concerning the detention and torture of the Somali people in Kenya. Whereas on April 2nd, 2014, the Kenyan police, as part of a security operation to root out terrorists, started arresting people without identity documents in the Somali-dominated Nairobi suburb of Isle, and in 1 week arrested nearly 4,000 Somalis or Kenyans of Somali origin across the country. And I'd like to now yield to Representative Phyllis Khan.
Representative Khan.
Whereas those arrested were detained at the Kasarani Sports Stadium under concentration camp-type conditions, as well as at various police stations in Nairobi, to be integrated and for their legal status to be checked. And whereas those arrested included women, some of whom were pregnant and had miscarriages or gave birth at detention centers, children and elders. And now I would like to yield to Representative Davney. Representative Davids. It says Diane, sorry. Representative Loeffler.
Representative Loeffler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas in the Pangani police station, Human Rights Watch witnessed police whipping, beating, and verbally abusing detainees who were packed by the hundreds into cells that were designed to accommodate 20 people and were filthy with urine and excrement. And whereas some of the people arrested have been released by the police after producing identification documents, but only after days in deplorable condition and paying bribes or exchanging sex for relief. And now I would yield to Representative Abler.
Representative Abler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas 17 organizations, including Amnesty International, the state-funded Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Transparency International Kenya, and the Kenyan branch of the International Commission of Jurists, said the security operation constitutes discrimination contrary to the provisions of the country's constitution. And, Madam Speaker, Representative Davids would yield, please.
Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas Kenya has deported 82 of the Somali detainees to Somalia without providing an opportunity to file an application for asylum, although international law prohibits the forcible return to persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group or political opinion, or to a situation where a person would be at real risk or torture or cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment, and whereas the United States Ambassador to Kenya, Robert Godick, has emphasized the need for the police to uphold human rights in the ongoing terror crackdown, now therefore, Madam Speaker, I would yield to Chair Clark.
Representative Clark.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of the state of Minnesota that it urges the President and the Congress of the United States to take every possible action to safeguard the security of the innocent, non-combatant Somali men, women, and children in Kenya. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of the State of Minnesota is directed to prepare copies of this memorial and transmit them to the President of the United States, the President and the Secretary of the United States Senate, the Speaker and Clerk of the United States House of Representatives, and Minnesota's Senators and Representatives in Congress. Madam Chair, there are a few people who want to make a couple of other comments.
Representative Abler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'm glad we can consider this kind of work, and you wonder why in the Minnesota House we're working on some kind of a resolution about Kenya. I remember in 1994, as just a regular citizen, I watched the massacre in Rwanda, where they killed up to 1 million people, and I thought, can I do something about this? And there was nothing to be done. There was very little being done on this topic or on some of the other topics you've heard about in the last few days, the Oromos. In 2012, we did a resolution for the Cambodians that they still point to as one of the only things that has been done in behalf of our allies in Cambodia. It was in 2012 under a different speaker, and I just saw the resolution hanging on the wall of the IKA just a couple weeks ago, and it's amazing how the work we can do can inspire people elsewhere who do not have hope as we talk about our freedoms we enjoy and all that, and it's compelling. And so I hope you all vote yes today, and I hope you also get to know some of these individuals that are just awesome new Americans, and some want to go back home, but it's just not safe. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Meeker, Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. What is happening now in Kenya is not new to Kenya. I actually spent a couple of weeks there a few years ago. And Kenya, over the past couple of decades, has been beset by problems. A failed economy, tribal clashes, corruption in the government. One result was the murder of a Minnesota priest, Father John Kaiser, in Kenya in 2000. Father Kaiser was the minister to another refugee camp in Kenya called Maela, where tens of thousands of Kenyans were placed who had been forcibly displaced from their land by the government. And so, as these problems persist, as evidenced by this resolution, I urge support of it to cast light on the terrible treatment of Kenyans and Somalis in Kenya.
Further discussion. There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the resolution its third reading.
Third reading, House File 3368.
Third reading. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 116 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 2546. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File 2546, the second engrossment, an act relating to public safety.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Slocum.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to assist in the monitoring and supervision of predatory offenders whose prior conduct indicates that they are a threat to society. Also to clarify the conduct that's being charged or sentenced for criminal sexual conduct in the third degree. The problem is that individuals who commit certain violent conduct are required by law to register as predatory offenders. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the BCA, maintains the central repository of information about these predatory offenders and assists local law enforcement and probation agencies with supervision of these individuals. This proposal requests several changes to assist with this supervision and treat predatory offenders in a consistent manner. This is an unsession bill for the Department of Public Safety. Some of the provisions in the bill are, they clarify statutory references so that conduct involving giving sexually explicit material to children is an offense that would require registration. It clarifies language regarding subsequent incarceration so that all offenders who have another offense are subject to the same registration requirements. Under the current language, offenders who get credit for time served prior to being sentenced for the new offense do not have their registration period extended. This bill also authorizes law enforcement officers to conduct random in-person verification checks of all offenders and obtain their photographs. It also addresses a court decision finding an out-of-state offender with an assigned risk level of 3, most likely to reoffend, was not subject to registration in Minnesota because of the individual's conviction was not for one of Minnesota's predatory offenses. Minnesota offenders are required to register if their conviction is for an offense that arises out of the same set of circumstances, even if the conviction is not for one of the predatory offenses. A parallel change was also made for those convictions or adjudication is in the military system. So if an offense occurs in the military system, this is covered. The last is that it addresses issues involving the recodification of civil commitment statutes that govern sexually dangerous persons and sexually psychopathic personalities. Again, it's an unsession bill clarifying language. I stand for questions.
Discussion to the bill. The member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and members, would Representative Slocum yield to a question?
She will yield. Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Slocum, excuse me if you said this and I didn't hear it. Does the Minnesota Coalition Against Sexual Assault support your bill?
Representative Slocum.
Madam Speaker, Representative Liebling, yes, they do.
Further discussion. There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File 2546.
Third reading. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 131 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 155. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 155, the second engrossment, an act relating to notaries public.
I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Runbeck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, House File 155 is one of those simple bills. And right now, current law says that $1 is the maximum that a notary public can charge for their signature and stamp on a commercial or legal document. $1. The law sets that in law and says that is the maximum. And it has been in law, unchanged, for 30 years. So this bill, I believe, is long overdue, and it has had bipartisan authorship in previous sessions. It has met with political folly, who knows? It's just hasn't made it, but it is one that we need to do. There are 80,000 notary publics in the state, 80,000 of them, and they're performing an important public service. They're affixing their notary and stamp to all kinds of documents and commercial documents and legal documents. So this bill would simply say in the law that they can charge up to a maximum of $5 for their service. So we go from $1 to $5. We will then be totally in line with the surrounding states. They all charge $5 at this time. Wisconsin is the last state to have raised their fee to $5. So, but interestingly enough, it costs these individuals $140 to become a notary public. And that fee is something that takes them for 5 years. But that fee to become a notary increased in 2003. Prior to that time, it was $40. So the fee itself to become a notary has increased 3 times. And yet what they can charge the public has not gone up at all. So I'm very hopeful that you'll take a look at this bill. It has a bipartisan history, and when you think about the kind of service that it is and the folks around the state, many of whom are in very sparsely populated areas, and some of these folks travel, have to get in their car, they have to go to a bedside, they are asked to be of service and are happily doing this, but they're not even recovering their costs. And I think today we see the convenience now of having many services available at UPS stores, mailboxes, etc., and so on. And in fact, the UPS franchise agreement requires them to offer the public notary. And sometimes they have to say, we can't even make any money on this, it's costing us, in fact. So I would urge your support, and I would stand for questions.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Uruso.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Runbeck, for bringing this bill. There are many, many instances in which people are required to use the services of a notary public, and we need there to be access. We need it to be a reasonable thing for people to stay in business doing this, so I urge a green vote on the bill.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 155.
Third reading. The member from Carver, Representative Pugh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I also rise in support of this bill, and I want to thank Representative Runbeck for bringing it. I understand that it may be difficult to vote for this bill, and I would want to encourage that a green vote is a vote in support of small business owners in our districts. I recently spoke with one of my neighbors who owns a UPS business, and actually several, and he explained to me how being only able to charge $1 is very much at the expense of providing service levels to other customers that are standing in his store. That the time that it takes to do this, and he's delighted to provide this service. In fact, as Representative Runbeck mentioned, it's a requirement of their contract to offer this service, but it is at the expense of providing the exceptional service that he would like when there's a line running, and so it's a money loser for them now. So this is a competition or a competitive issue, and I encourage a green vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion to the bill? Seeing none, the clerk will... Oh, Representative Runbeck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And maybe I could just speak to the perhaps perception that this is a political bill, and I think it had some treatment as a political thing years ago when the governor vetoed it, saying it was too steep of an increase. And I've spoken to my leadership, and I'm hopeful the Democrats will speak to their leadership. This is not something that, if you're concerned, that I think we have to just say this is good government, and we have to actually bite the bullet and do the right thing for these servants. So it is not going to be political fodder in anybody's political campaign, and I believe we have the support of leadership to do that. So again, urge your support. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 84 ayes and 45 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 2989. The clerk will report the bill.
2989, the first engrossment, an act relating to business organizations.
The member from Lyon, Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before you is House File 2959. It's the Secretary of State's 2014 Business Services Bill. As you know, the Secretary of State is a repository for a lot of the Uniform Commercial Codes, the Central Notification System liens, and business and non-profit corporation filings, and similar records. This bill is pretty straightforward. It corrects some certain business laws, eliminates redundant filing, and updates provisions on the central notification farm liens to accommodate modern technology, primarily in the area of email. So in the past, the Secretary of State would essentially mail a physical disc to folks that are in the business of buying and selling farm products. And this simply updates to modern technology, allowing for the use of email. Most folks, they are the general support of this. The Grain Marketers Association, the Commerce, and most organizations, Farm Credit Services, are all in support of the bill and appreciate a green vote. Thank you.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 2989.
Third reading. Discussion. The member from Pope, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. As the representative pointed out, this is an important tool that elevators, for example, use when somebody hauls in a load of grain, that they can check this system to find out if there may be a lien on that ag product. So I support the bill and urge members to do likewise. Thanks, Representative Swedzinski.
Any further discussion to the bill? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 131 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.
Is it coming?
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to move a brief recess, about 10-15 minutes, trying to get some business in order here from the Senate at the call of the chair.
Representative Purcell moves a recess to the call of the chair. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The House is in recess.